The dungeons beneath Castle Thornhaven had witnessed countless horrors over the centuries, but nothing quite like the creature now contained within its flooded cells. Alpha King Kale descended the stone steps with heavy footfalls, his massive form casting monstrous shadows against the torchlit walls. He was barely recognizable as human anymore. 7 feet of corded muscle and dark fur, amber eyes that glowed like embers in the darkness, claws that scraped against the stone with each step. The curse had consumed him so thoroughly over the past 5 years that even his pack sometimes forgot he'd once been a man. He preferred it that way. Men felt. Men remembered. Men could be hurt. Beasts simply survived. "She still refuses to speak, Your Majesty," reported Commander Brecken, a grizzled wolf who'd served 3 generations of alphas. He stood guard outside the reinforced cell, seawater seeping beneath the iron door. Won't eat, won't cooperate, just stares at the walls. Kyle growled low in his chest, a sound that made even Brecken step back. Then perhaps she needs more persuasive encouragement. The war with the merfolk had raged for 2 years, ever since their queen had claimed the coastal territories as sacred spawning grounds. Kale's people were starving, cut off from the sea trade routes. This captive, caught during last week's bloody skirmish at Serpent's Bay, represented their first real leverage. If she was nobility, as her elaborate pearl adornment suggested, her people would negotiate. They had to. He unlocked the door himself, hinges screaming in protest. The cell was half submerged, designed centuries ago for exactly this purpose. Salt water lapped against stone. And there, in the deeper pool carved into the far end, she waited. Lyra. He'd heard the guards whisper her name when they thought he couldn't hear. They spoke it with a mixture of fear and awe, as if naming her made her more real, more dangerous. She was beautiful in an otherworldly way that unsettled him. Skin like moonlight on water, hair that shifted between silver and blue depending on the light, eyes the color of the deep ocean where sunlight never reached. Her tail was magnificent even in captivity, scales shimmering iridescent in the torchlight, the powerful fins torn and bloodied from the nets that had caught her. Those eyes fixed on him now, and Kale saw no fear in them, only defiance, only hate. "You will tell me where your queen's war parties gather," he said, his voice more growl than speech. The curse had taken even that from him, the ability to form words without effort. "You will tell me your people's weaknesses. You will tell me how to end this war." Lyra said nothing. She'd been silent for 6 days. "Your people attacked my trade ships, killed my warriors. Children go hungry in the villages because your kind destroys our fishing boats." Kyle moved closer to the water's edge, crouching down. "I am not the monster here, little fish." Still nothing. But her fingers gripped the rocky ledge she perched on, knuckles white. "Do you know what we do to enemies of the crown?" He let his claws extend fully, scraping them against stone. "I could separate that pretty tail from your body. See how long you survive on land, gasping like the fish you are." A flash of something in her eyes, anger perhaps, or pain, but her lips remained sealed. Kale's frustration mounted. He'd broken hardened warriors with less. Why wouldn't this creature bend? He reached forward, fast as striking snake, and grabbed her arm. Her skin was cool and impossibly smooth, and the contact sent an unexpected jolt through him, something he hadn't felt in years. Lyra jerked back, and for the first time she opened her mouth. But instead of words, what came out was a sound, a keening, melodic cry that resonated in his bones. It wasn't quite a scream, nor a song, but something in between that made his chest ache with unexpected longing. And then he saw them, tears streaming down her face. They weren't like human tears. They caught the torchlight and sparkled, luminescent, leaving trails of silver blue down her cheeks. One dropped onto his hand where he still gripped her arm. The effect was instantaneous and shocking. Warmth flooded through Kale's body, starting from the point of contact and spreading like wildfire. His vision sharpened, colors becoming vivid and clear instead of the muted gray and amber of his cursed sight. The constant rage that clouded his mind, the animalistic fury that had become his baseline, receded like a wave pulling back from shore. For one crystalline moment, he remembered who he'd been. Kale Thornhaven, second son of the Northern Reaches, who'd loved poetry and stargazing, who'd promised his younger sister he'd never let anything hurt her, who'd believed in honor and justice and love. The memory shattered as Lyra wrenched free, diving deep into her pool. Kyle stumbled back, staring at his hand, his more human hand. The fur had receded, claws shrinking back into fingernails. He touched his face and felt smoother skin, sharper features, human features. "What?" His voice came out clearer, almost completely human. "What are you?" Lyra surfaced at the far end of the pool, watching him with those fathomless eyes, a slight tilt of her head, curious now rather than merely defiant. She'd seen the transformation too. The effects were already fading. Cale felt the curse reasserting itself, fur prickling along his arms, rage seeping back into his thoughts like poison. Within minutes, he was fully beast again. But he remembered. For the first time in 5 years, he'd remembered being human. He looked at the mermaid with new understanding, new hunger. Not for information about her people's war plans, but for that precious, fleeting moment of humanity she'd somehow given him. "Your tears," he said slowly. "They did that. They changed me." Lyra simply stared, expression unreadable. Kale rose to his full height, mind racing despite the curse's fog. "You will cry for me again," he said. Not a request, but a command. "However I must make it happen, you will give me that gift again." He left her then, locking the door behind him, but everything had changed. He had a purpose now beyond war, beyond survival. He would have his humanity back, even if he had to break her to get it. Kyle returned to the dungeon every day after that, sometimes twice. He told himself it was strategic. Understanding the enemy's magic could turn the tide of war. He told his advisors the prisoner was beginning to cooperate. He told Commander Brecken to ensure her meals were improved, her wounds tended. He told himself many lies, but the truth was simpler and more dangerous. He was addicted to being human again. At first, Lyra refused to cry. She'd realized what her tears meant to him, and she wielded that knowledge like a weapon, denying him with silence and stoic endurance. Cale tried everything. Threats, promises, tales designed to move her, even bringing musicians to play haunting melodies. Nothing worked, until the night he stopped trying to manipulate her and simply talked. "I had a sister," he said on the 8th night, sitting outside her pool's edge, voice rough. "Mara. She was 12 when the curse took hold. She tried to help me, tried to calm the beast I was becoming." He paused, claws scraping against stone. "I killed her." The words hung in the damp air like a confession. Cale had never spoken them aloud before. Not intentionally. "I didn't even remember doing it until days later, when I found her body in the forest. My claws, my teeth." His voice broke, becoming more growl than speech. "That's when I stopped fighting it, stopped trying to be human. What was the point? The man I was died with her." Silence stretched between them. Then, so softly he almost missed it, "I had a sister too." Cale's head snapped up. Lyra's first words. Her voice was like water over stones, melodic, fluid, accented in ways that suggested a tongue not made for human speech. "Eldest of 7, Mira. She led the first raid against your ships." Lyra's eyes glistened. "Your archers killed her. I watched her sink, blood clouding the water like ink." A single tear slipped down her cheek, dropped into the water. She caught it in her palm before it could reach him, watching the luminescent droplet with something like reverence or regret. "That's why you fight," Cale said, understanding dawning. "Not for territory, for revenge." "That's why you fight," Lyra countered, moving closer to the pool's edge. "Your war started long before ours did. What curse makes a man into a monster, Alpha King?" No one had asked him that, not in 5 years. They all assumed they knew, that it was battle magic, or a hex from enemy witches, or divine punishment. But Lyra waited, genuinely curious, and Kyle found himself answering. "Betrayal. The woman I loved, my betrothed, conspired with my older brother to take my throne. They poisoned my father and framed me for it. When I discovered the truth," he stared at his clawed hands. "The rage was so absolute, so consuming, that it became physical. The beast inside me, the alpha wolf we all carry, broke free and never went back. So you became the monster they claimed you were," Lyra said softly. "Yes." Another tear fell, and this time she didn't catch it. It touched the stone between them, and where it landed, a small white flower sprouted. Impossible. beautiful, glowing faintly in the darkness. Your tears grow life, Kyle whispered, awed. Mere tears hold our grief, our love, our humanity. They're precious, sacred. Lyra looked at him directly. You ask me to weep so you can steal moments of being human, but you don't understand. Every tear takes something from me. Memories, emotions. If I cry too much, I'll become empty, a shell. Guilt pierced through Cale's chest, an emotion he hadn't felt in years. I didn't know. Now you do. They sat in silence, two grieving souls separated by water and war and curse and circumstance. When Cale finally left, he didn't demand her tears. He simply said, "Thank you for telling me." The dynamic shifted after that night. Cale continued his visits, but they talked instead of fought. He brought her books about the land world, described sunsets and forests and mountains she'd never seen. She told him about underwater kingdoms of coral and crystal, about songs that could calm storms, about her people's belief that tears were prayers made physical. And sometimes, when the stories were particularly moving, or the loneliness particularly acute, Lyra would cry. Not many tears, 1 or 2, carefully rationed. She'd let them fall near enough for Cale to feel their effect, watching with fascination as the beast receded and the man emerged. In those precious hours of humanity, Cale was different, gentle, thoughtful. His voice lost its growl, his eyes their feral glow. He'd read poetry to her, laugh at her observations about land-dweller absurdities, and once he'd even sung, a lullaby his mother had taught him, voice rusty but sincere. Lyra found herself waiting for these transformations, not just witnessing them, but treasuring them. The man beneath the monster was everything the beast was not, kind where the other was cruel, vulnerable where the other was violent, capable of profound tenderness where the other knew only rage. She was falling in love with him, she realized with horror. Not the Alpha King, the cursed tyrant who'd imprisoned her, but Cale, the broken man who visited her in the depths, who trusted her with his pain, who looked at her not as an enemy or a tool, but as an equal. It was a betrayal of everything she should be. 3 months into her captivity, everything changed. Cale arrived at midnight, more human than she'd seen him in weeks. He'd been crying, his tears, not hers, and his human face was anguished. "My advisors want you executed," he said without preamble. "They've discovered our meetings. They believe you're manipulating me, weakening the kingdom. They're planning to kill you during tomorrow's council session, make it look like an escape attempt." Lyra's heart, that traitorous organ, seized with fear. Then tonight is goodbye. No. Kyle unlocked her cell door completely, stepping inside for the first time. "I'm setting you free. There's a passage from the lower dungeons to the sea. I'll create a distraction. You'll have maybe an hour." "Why?" The word came out broken. "This is what you wanted. For me to leave. To end this." Cale moved to the water's edge, and for the first time, he touched her face deliberately, gently. His hand was mostly human, warm against her cool skin. "Because somewhere between demanding your tears and earning them, I forgot you were my enemy. I forgot you were my prisoner." His thumb brushed her cheek. "I remembered you were simply Lyra. And I—" A tear slipped down her face, cutting off his words. Then another. Not sad tears, but something more complex. Grief and joy and terror and hope all mixed together. They fell on his chest, and the transformation was different this time. More complete, more permanent feeling. Kyle gasped, falling to his knees as humanity flooded through him like a dam breaking. Fur receded entirely, claws became hands. His face restructured itself into the man he'd once been, handsome, young, achingly human. "Lyra," he breathed, and pulled her from the water, holding her as if she were something precious beyond measure. Her tail draped over the stone, scales dimming without submersion, but she didn't care. "I love you," she whispered against his shoulder, admitting the impossible truth. "I love you, and it damns us both." "Then we'll be damned together," Cale said, and kissed her. The dungeon door burst open. Commander Brecken stood there with 6 guards, silver weapons drawn. "Your Majesty, the Mer clans are attacking the harbor. Dozens of them. It's a rescue attempt." Kale's eyes met Lyra's, and in that moment they both understood. This was the choice, her people or him, his kingdom or her, war or love. Everything hung in the balance, as distant sounds of battle echoed through the castle stones. Lyra made her decision in a heartbeat. "Take me to them," she said, voice ringing with authority. "I'll stop this." Kyle's human eyes widened. "Lyra, they came for you. They'll take you home." "And the killing continues? More Miras? More Maras?" She gripped his hand fiercely. "No, not anymore." But as guards hauled her onto a transport cart, her tail too cumbersome for stairs, the transformation began reversing. Without her tears' constant contact, Kale's humanity started slipping away. Fur sprouted along his arms, his posture hunched, amber bleeding back into his eyes. "No," Lyra whispered, reaching for him, but Commander Brecken blocked her path. "You've weakened him enough, Sea Witch," Brecken snarled. "Your Majesty, let us handle the prisoner. You need to lead the defense." The beast was winning. Kale's jaw elongated, words becoming growls. The rage, his constant companion for 5 years, crept back like fog over water. Through the haze, he saw Lyra's anguished face, and some part of him still human enough to love her fought desperately to surface. "Trust me," he managed to rasp before the transformation completed. The harbor was chaos. Dozens of Mer warriors had breached the docks, their haunting war songs filling the night air as they battled Kale's wolf guards. Water elementals crashed against stone. Blood mixed with seawater. The ancient war between land and sea played out in brutal choreography. "Stop!" Lyra's voice cut through the cacophony, amplified by mere magic into a resonant command that froze both sides mid-strike. In the water, her mother surfaced, Queen Thessaly, crowned in pearls and fury. "Lyra, daughter, mother, please. This has to end. We came to rescue you from that monster." Thessaly's eyes found Kale, now fully beast, barely restrained by his own guards. Her face twisted with hatred. "He'll pay for what he's done to you." "He didn't..." Lyra struggled to explain the impossible. "I stayed willingly. These past weeks I've stayed because I've seen what's beneath the curse. He's not our enemy. The war is." Shocked silence rippled through both armies. Then Commander Brecken laughed bitterly. "The prisoner admits her manipulation. She's bewitched our king." "He's not bewitched," Lyra protested. "He's cursed. By his own rage, his own pain, just like we're cursed by ours." She looked between her mother and Kale's monstrous form. "Don't you see? We're mirrors of each other. You lost a daughter and swore vengeance. He lost a sister and became a monster. Where does it end?" Queen Thessaly's expression hardened. "It ends when justice is served." "Justice or revenge? Are they the same thing, Mother?" Lyra's voice broke. "Mira wouldn't want this. She'd hate seeing what we've become." Something flickered in Thessaly's eyes. Pain, quickly suppressed. "You don't understand what they took from us." "I understand exactly." Lyra turned to Kale, whose bestial eyes tracked her with desperate intelligence. "And I understand what we've taken from them. Their trade, their security, their king's humanity." She took a shuddering breath. "There's only one way to break these curses. Both of them." An ancient Mer priestess surfaced beside the queen, white-haired and knowing. "Child, you cannot mean..." "The tears of undoing," Lyra said firmly. "It's the only way." Horror swept through the Mer ranks. The tears of undoing were legend, a Mer's final sacrifice, weeping every tear left in their body until nothing remained. It could break any curse, heal any wound, bridge any divide. But the cost was absolute. The Mere would become something between life and death, neither fully present in any world, forever walking the boundary. "Lyra, no!" Thessaly surged forward. "I forbid it. You'll lose yourself, everything that makes you you. But I'll save him. Save us all." Lyra looked at her mother with love and certainty. "This is my choice, my tears, my sacrifice." Kale roared, the sound anguished and all too human despite his bestial form. He broke free from his guards, lunging toward her not in attack but in desperate negation. No, not for me. I'm not worth this." But Lyra had already begun. She closed her eyes and thought of everything she loved. Her sisters playing in kelp forests, her mother's lullabies, the taste of moonlight on water. She thought of Kale reading poetry in the dungeon, his human smile, the gentle way he'd touched her face. She thought of Mira's laugh and Mara's kindness and all the beautiful, terrible, precious things that made life worth living, and she wept. The tears came like a flood, streaming down her face in luminous rivulets. They fell on the dock, on the water, on Cale as he crashed to his knees before her. Where they landed, white flowers bloomed, thousands of them, covering stone and sea in impossible beauty. The transformation was immediate and profound. Cale's curse shattered like glass, 5 years of beast falling away in moments. He became human, truly, completely human, no longer tethered to the monster within. The rage that had defined him simply evaporated, replaced by clarity and crushing grief as he watched what Lyra was giving up for him. But the tears didn't stop there. They fell into the harbor water, spreading outward in glowing rings. Where they touched the mere warriors, old wounds healed. Where they touched the wolf guards, battle fury cooled to reason. The magic spread like ripples, carrying forgiveness and understanding, washing away years of accumulated hatred. Queen Thessaly wept too. Then, human-style tears of grief and pride as she watched her daughter sacrifice herself for peace. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was only minutes, Lyra's tears slowed, stopped. She opened her eyes, and they were different, still oceanic, but distant now, as if she were looking at the world through water. "Lyra?" Cale caught her as she swayed, fully human hands gentle on her fading form. "Stay with me, please." "I'm here," she whispered, voice echoing strangely, but also not. Between worlds now, between life and memory. Her hand touched his face, barely substantial. "You're free, Kyle. Truly free. The curse is broken. Not if I've lost you. You haven't lost me." Her smile was sad and radiant. "I'm the boundary now. The bridge. Where land meets sea. Where human touches mirror. Where love conquers hate. That's where I'll be. Always." She was fading like mist, becoming translucent. Cale held her tighter, but it was like holding water. Queen Thessaly approached, kneeling beside them. "Daughter, what you've done, it's the greatest magic. The oldest. You've become the peace. Mother, tell my sisters I love them. Tell them." Lyra's form flickered. "Tell them some things are worth the price." Then she was gone. Not dead, but transformed. Where she'd been, a pool of crystalline water remained, perfectly clear, reflecting both sea and stars. 1 year later, the treaty was signed on the anniversary of that night, both kingdoms gathering at the harbor where everything had changed. Kyle, King Cale now, called the Peacemaker, stood at the water's edge with Queen Thessaly, their joined signatures marking the end of war. The white flowers still bloomed there, year-round, impossible and beautiful. And sometimes, at the boundary between tide and shore, a figure could be seen, neither fully solid nor fully spirit, with silver-blue hair and oceanic eyes. Lyra, the bridge between worlds, watching over the peace she'd purchased with her tears. Kyle visited every evening, sitting by the tidal pools, talking to the space between sea and land. He told her about his day, the kingdom's healing, the hybrid council of wolves and Mirror working together. He read her poetry. He brought her flowers, though hers were more beautiful. And sometimes, just sometimes, he felt cool fingers touch his cheek, heard a water-song voice whisper, "I'm here. I'm still here." She was the boundary, the bridge, the tears that turned a beast to man and enemies to allies, and their love remained, eternal as the tide, strong as the bond between land and sea. The end.